Hello, everyone. This is AUIBFM, the American University of Iraq in Baghdad radio station at 101.5. This is Humam, and today we have a very special guest here on AUIB campus and specifically inside the radio station studios, Mr. Greg. First, I wanted to introduce you to our listeners, but I want to hand you the mic, and so please tell us about you.
Okay, sure. I'm happy to be here. My name is Greg McElwain. I'm the Cultural Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy here in Baghdad. I've been here for about a year, and I work with all the exchange programs, which I guess we're here to talk about today.
Perfect. Yeah, so speaking of exchange programs, can you please briefly list all of the available scholarship exchange programs that the U.S. provides here for Iraqi people?
Okay, that will take a little while, but I'll start.
We're happy to listen.
We have programs for people ranging in age from high school age to mid-career professionals.
Yeah.
We have our flagship program. I think the program that many people know here the best is ILEP, the Iraqi Young Leaders Exchange Program.
Yeah.
And we have three different groups of that program. We have high school students for Arabic language, high school students English language, and university students in English language. And this is a program that allows students to go to the U.S. Every summer for about 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
They spend a few days in Washington, and usually in 2 or 3 other places like Vermont or California or Texas. And they get to go to university campuses there. They get to meet professors. They get to meet other students. They get to meet Americans. It's just a really, really life-changing experience for lots of the students who go on this program.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I see that the Iraqi students are representing their countries and, interacting with different cultures there in the U.S. I saw as well they're attending, participating in some kind of workshops with certificates. So can you tell me a little bit about it?
Lots of workshops, usually about leadership. That's one of the things that you're there to learn, how to become a leader, because it's called the Iraqi Young Leaders Exchange Program.
Definitely.
So we think the people we choose for the program will be future leaders of Iraq. So they're learning how to be a leader. They're learning what it's like to meet people who are leading in the U.S. and how they do that.
Definitely.
But they're great ambassadors for Iraq in the United States.
Yeah.
And because when the students come back, they often tell me that they were just very disappointed that so few Americans really understand what Iraq is really like today.
Yeah.
And they will tell them things like, we have malls, we have.
We're not riding in a camel.
That's right, but no camels. We have
no
cars.
No camels here.
We have internet. We have computers. We have you have Cinnabon now.
Yeah.
And so it's really good for Americans to meet Iraqis and learn what Iraq is really like. But on the same token, it's really great for Iraqi students to meet Americans and to see America and understand that America is not like it's not like the movies.
Exactly.
It's not like the movies at all.
Well, I think that's the main point of doing these kind of exchange programs and to share ideas, cultures, and So this is. You mentioned high school and UG. What about the mentor program for ILEP? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
The mentors are the adult mentor program, are people who travel with the ILEP students. They serve sort of as chaperones. They're sort of people who are their parents away while they're in the U.S. And they also attend the programs, and they get a lot out of the programs as well. But they're there to sort of just make sure everybody is doing okay while they're far away from home.
For only the high school students.
For only the high school students,
yes.
Because
the UG ones,
the university students, they're on their own.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, ILEP is a very interesting exchange program, but my favorite one is Fulbright, specifically Fulbright Foreign Student Program. Can you list first about the Fulbright programs, and then we can dive deep into the foreign one?
We have 4 programs. We have the Fulbright Visiting Scholar Program, which is a summer program for university professors.
Yeah.
We have the Fulbright Teaching and Excellence Achievement Program, which is a summer program for high school teachers. We have the Fulbright Language Teaching Assistant Program, and this is where young Iraqis go and they work in universities as assistants.
They call it FLTA.
FLTA. They work as assistants in Arabic language departments. So they serve as native speakers, assistants for people who are studying Arabic in the United States.
Perfect.
And they get to stay for a 9-month, for a whole school year. So it's a great experience for them.
It is indeed.
And they get to take courses while they're at the universities as well.
Indeed.
While they're teaching.
Yeah.
And the other one that you're talking about is the Fulbright Student Program.
Yeah.
Which is a 2-year program for Iraqi students to go get master's degrees in the United States.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit of, provide more information and details about, the entry requirements, who can go and who can't, about the student program?
Well, the student program, we start recruiting far in advance. We actually just finished recruiting.
Yeah.
Like yesterday was the
they
deadline.
Extended the deadline. Yeah.
The deadline for people to apply for the 2024 program for the fall of 2024. So you really have to start plan in advance. if you're interested in this program.
Yeah.
And you have to fill out the applications completely and thoroughly. You know, we get a lot of applications, and if they aren't complete and thorough, then they don't get considered, because we have enough applications that are complete and thorough.
A lot of people, it's a great major competition.
It is a competition.
Yeah.
And you have to fill out the application completely. You have to write essays explaining why you want to go to the U.S., why you want to study, why you want this degree, how this degree will help you when you come back to Iraq.
Yeah. It's a personal statement and research objective, right?
Yes.
And I think we have 2 questions as well within the application about, describing the major and the future plans, I think.
Yes, and what kind of project do you want to do while you're in the U.S. You also have to include your transcripts. You have to have letters of recommendation
CV.
from former professors, a CV as well. It's a lot of paper. And I think for some people, when they first think, I want to apply for this program, they look at the list of things they have to do, and sometimes it's very daunting. And it's a lot to do.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but you get a 2-year degree in the U.S.,
so
you have to put in this work.
You have 3 months of preparation. I think that is good enough.
Yeah, you have a lot of time.
Do you think that candidates or applicants should or can mention university names, professor names in their essays?
The universities where they want to study?
Yeah.
No, there actually is a place on the form asking you, where would you like to study? And what happens in Iraq is everyone pretty much says Harvard or Yale.
Stay out of it.
And so the one thing that people need to understand is that it's probably they won't go to those universities. What happens once you're accepted in the Fulbright program, then all the information that we have here goes to Washington. Yeah. And the placement process begins. So you don't get to choose where you go. Washington works very hard to place students. The discipline you choose is a big factor. Your TOEFL score is a huge factor.
It's a very
because TOEFL scores really determine where you're going to be able to go. And you have to be prepared to go to small places sometimes, universities you've never heard of. But one thing people don't understand in Iraq is that big state universities are great universities. Definitely. You get a great education. And we have like 4,000 universities in the U.S. Yeah. And you can get great education.
Well, I think the educational system, the educational system throughout the whole, United States is amazing. It's not, specified of, one university or another. Yeah, the whole experience is amazing. I think in terms of TOEFL score, I think there's a GRE score as well.
There's a GRE score depending on the university you're going to, and sometimes the major, sometimes a GMAT if you're going to try to get into an MBA program. It depends. But as you go through the process, again, it's a very long process.
It is.
And if you're helped along the way by people at the embassy and then people in Washington who are administering the program for us there once the people are selected.
So how many students does Fulbright accept? For
Iraq.
For Iraqi people.
I think for Iraq we have between 20 and 30 this year, so it's very competitive.
For all of the Fulbright applications?
Oh, for Fulbright student program. For Fulbright student
that's
program.
A lot of students.
Yeah, it's a lot. It depends. It depends every year. It depends on funding. Funding changes every year. Yeah. So in some countries there's a cost funding share with the government. Sometimes we have more spots in those places. But here it's relatively small, but it's very competitive. And the one thing people need to understand, too, is that once you're selected, that's just the first step in the process. Everyone does not always get placed. Sometimes your TOEFL score, your grade score makes it impossible to place you. Sometimes the funding is just not there at the end because different programs cost different amounts of money. Yeah, so the budget changes every year for this. Yeah. And you have to keep in mind, too, the Fulbright office in D.C. is trying to place students from all over the world. Every embassy interviews potential Fulbright applicants. Yeah. And every embassy chooses people to send on to D.C. And every embassy has people who make the program and some people who don't make the program. Again, depending on their grades, depending on the funding we have that year.
The whole application. It's a very competitive program. That when choosing the universities, does the student has to follow some, factors, what he needs to search of in terms of choosing university? It's
good to have a realistic choice and not just saying only Harvard. Yeah. It's do a little research because again, we have 4,000 universities in the U.S.
That's a lot.
Really good universities.
All of them, yeah.
Good private universities, good public universities, good small universities, places you've never heard of. Lots of Iraqis end up going to universities they've never heard of. They end up getting placed in places they've never heard of. So you have to be willing to be flexible enough to go anywhere because you don't get to choose university. That's really up to the office in Washington. So Maybe you're going to a small town in Kansas. Maybe you're going to someplace in Georgia, someplace in Maryland, someplace you've never thought about going. But the students who come back, I've met lots of the alumni of these programs. They have great experiences.
I met
you
a
have
lot
to have
of
great
people,
experiences because, the thing about when you're a university student, if you want to learn, you will learn, no matter where you go. And you will find teachers and colleagues and fellow students who are going to help you along that way, no matter where you go to university.
It's all in the student himself. So do you think that only the course modules, the university can be a major factor of choosing that university, or maybe the city itself and the culture, maybe the accommodation, the expenses, someone has to take under consideration?
All those things have to be taken into account. Yeah, how much money that the U.S. government will be spending on your program.
Yeah.
So, but again, you have to be flexible. And I know that people in Washington, because we're getting placements for this year still. People going this fall. In the last month or so, we finally got placements for some people who had not yet been placed. So DC is working very hard. They have lots of contacts at universities all over the United States. And so the Fulbright program is very well known in the U.S. U.S. universities welcome Fulbright students. They tend to be very, very motivated students. They tend to want to work. They really want to learn. And those are the best kind of students you can have.
Speaking of work and practical work, I met a Fulbright alumni maybe a couple of months ago, and she's a neuroscientist right now. She mentioned something about the third year of academic training, something like that, by universities. Is that funded by the Fulbright, or maybe it has to be self-funded?
It has to be self-funded. The Fulbright here covers up to 2 years, of postgraduate study.
Okay, perfect. So what about the SUSI program?
The SUSI program is the study of the United States Institute, SUSI. And we have 3 different programs. We have one in religious pluralism, one in young women leadership, one in climate change, and then one for scholars as well. And this also is a summer program. And so if you're a high school student, there are no programs for you in SUSI, I think. It's for college students and for professionals.
Okay, perfect. What about the Humphrey? Is it part of Fulbright?
The Humphrey is different. The Humphrey actually we're recruiting for right now. We're still recruiting for the Humphrey.
Yeah.
But the Humphrey is for mid-career professionals. So people who are maybe 35 to 45 to maybe up to 50, but people who are already established in a career and they want to sort of further their career and get more additional information and experience that they can't get in Iraq. So they'll apply for a program in the U.S., and they have to have a really good, solid mission statement. This is what my job is. This is what I need to go to the U.S. to learn, to study, to expand my knowledge of this job. Yeah. And if they're chosen, they go to a university in the U.S. usually for about 9 months. It's a non-degree program, so it's professional development. So, for example, it is. When I was in another embassy in Tunisia, we had a gentleman we sent on the Humphrey who was very active in the date industry in Tunisia. Tunisia, like Iraq, is a big date producing country.
It is.
And he wanted to learn more about date production in America, date marketing in America, all this kind of stuff. So he ended up getting selected to go to a university in California, because California is where most dates in the United States are grown. I learned that. I didn't know that. And so the agriculture school at this particular university had lots of information about growing dates and what what you have to do to make to grow a lot of dates, and they also had a marketing department about what they did to sell them and to market them to overseas. So for him, it was just learning a little bit more about that industry, and that's kind of what Humphrey does.
Yeah, that is perfect, actually. I was just wondering about the whole programs at the U.S. They receive thousands of applicants, and it is a very competitive one. How do you promote these scholarships? It is through conferences, maybe online, and
we do a lot of online recruitment. We have help with some of the bigger programs. We work with some NGOs here who help us recruit. But one of the best ways that people learn about these programs is through our alumni. We have so many. We've been doing Fulbright, for example, since 1954. I think we've been doing Fulbright, since 1954 in Iraq. So there are lots and lots of alumni who spread the news to their colleagues and their colleagues' children and their colleagues' grand.
Thank you so much. So last but not least, I really enjoyed everything that you mentioned. For new applicants, future applicants, maybe alumni, anyone who applied for these programs or who's been already an alumni, what advice you want to provide for them?
Start early.
Yeah.
Make sure your application is complete. and make sure you meet the deadline.
Definitely.
Those are the three main pieces of advice.
Yeah, because I think, if starting very late can maybe affect the way of quality of writing, maybe specifically, providing the recommendation letters is a very hard one because it's something that you can't control, I think. Yeah, so start early. That's it for today. So thank you so much for being in our studio, and we hope to see you soon.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.